Hello, friends. Today, I want to share a story that's about more than just chance encounters. It's about discovering unexpected connections, breaking down personal walls, and embracing a journey of self-discovery. It's a tale of two individuals whose paths crossed at just the right moment, changing their lives in ways they never saw coming. This story dives into the complexities of emotions, the courage it takes to be vulnerable, and the magic that can happen when you open yourself up to something new and unfamiliar. So, settle in. This is one of those stories that might just make you think about your own journey and the people who shape it. Let's get into it. Let's title the story, I'm Straight. I Can't Stop After a Risky Encounter. This is a true story from recent events in my life. For privacy, I'm sharing it through a throwaway account, and I've changed some names and details. I'm a doctor, 34 years old, tall, with an athletic build. I've always considered myself straight, but for as long as I can remember, I've also been quietly curious about the idea of being with a man. It's something I've never shared with anyone. To the world, I'm a typical guy who's into women, talks about marriage, and lives a straight life. No one would suspect that I've sometimes thought about exploring another side of myself. At work, we often have students rotating through the hospital, and recently, one of them completely threw me off guard. His name was Aaron, a 24-year-old nursing student. He was around 5 feet 10 inches, with a slim but athletic build, warm brown skin, and striking features. He had this effortlessly charming way about him, kind, soft-spoken, with a smile that could brighten any room. He also wore glasses and had braces, which somehow made his smile even more endearing. Aaron and I started to talk more during his rotation. He'd often shadow me during shifts, and we'd chat during breaks or when walking to and from the parking garage. As we got to know each other, I found myself drawn to him in a way I couldn't quite explain. There was something about him. His mix of confidence and vulnerability, his sense of humor, and the easy way we connected, that stuck with me. I couldn't help but notice that Aaron never mentioned dating anyone, whether a girlfriend or boyfriend. Sometimes his mannerisms made me wonder if he might be into guys, but I didn't dare ask. Instead, I kept things light, complimenting him here and there, making him laugh, and spending as much time with him as I could without crossing any lines. When his final day at the hospital came, I felt a strange pang of regret. We'd built a solid rapport, but I had no idea if I'd ever see him again. Despite all our conversations, I couldn't bring myself to ask anything personal, let alone reveal how I felt. A few weeks later, I ran into Aaron at the gym. It was my first time seeing him outside of work, and he looked different, more relaxed and confident. We struck up a conversation, and before I knew it, we were working out together. Afterward, we decided to grab some food nearby and catch up. During our conversation, Aaron casually asked me if I was seeing anyone. I told him I was single, and then, on a whim, I added, "What about you? Any girlfriend or boyfriend?" Aaron hesitated, then smiled and said he'd broken up with his boyfriend before starting nursing school. My heart raced. For the first time, I felt like I could be honest with him. So I admitted that I'd been curious about my own feelings and hinted at my admiration for him. Aaron blushed, looking down at his food before glancing back up at me. "I thought you were straight," he said, laughing nervously. "So did I," I replied with a chuckle, "but I guess I'm not entirely sure anymore." He grinned, his face lighting up. "Well, I'm not that straight when you're around," he said, his voice teasing but sincere. The air between us shifted, filled with nervous excitement. After a moment, Aaron invited me back to his place to continue our conversation. I hesitated, but eventually agreed. As I followed him in my car, I couldn't stop thinking about what this meant for me, for us, and for everything I thought I knew about myself. It was a night that changed the way I looked at myself and my feelings, and it's still something I'm trying to process. But for the first time, I felt free to explore a part of myself I'd kept hidden for so long. The morning sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of Aaron's apartment, casting a soft glow over the room. As I stood by the window sipping the coffee he'd brewed, I couldn't help but reflect on the previous night. It wasn't just about the physical connection. It was something deeper, something I hadn't anticipated but welcomed wholeheartedly. Aaron walked over, still in his oversized sweatshirt and pajama pants, his hair slightly disheveled from sleep. He smiled at me, and I could see a hint of vulnerability in his expression. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his voice gentle. "Good," I replied honestly. "Better than I thought I would." "It feels right." He nodded, stepping closer. "I'm glad. I was worried it might be too much or too fast." "Not at all," I reassured him, setting my coffee down and taking his hand. "I don't know where this is going, but I'm happy to figure it out with you." That marked the beginning of something neither of us had fully expected. Over the next few weeks, our connection deepened. We spent nearly every free moment together, discovering parts of each other that felt like long-lost pieces of a puzzle. Aaron introduced me to his favorite cafes, tucked away in quiet corners of the city. We'd sit for hours, talking about everything from our childhood memories to our career aspirations. In turn, I shared parts of myself I hadn't revealed to anyone. Stories of past heartbreaks, my uncertainties about the future, and my journey of self-discovery. One evening, as we sat on his couch watching a documentary, Aaron turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I never thought I'd meet someone like you," he said softly. "Like me?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He laughed, a little nervously. "Yeah, someone who's so sure of who they are in some ways, but still willing to question and explore. It's inspiring." I didn't know how to respond at first, but his words stayed with me. Aaron had this way of making me feel seen, not just for who I was, but for who I could become. Our bond wasn't without its challenges, though. There were moments of doubt and hesitation, mostly on my part. Navigating this new side of myself wasn't always easy, and I worried about how others, friends, family, colleagues, might react if they knew. Aaron, however, was patient. He never pushed, never demanded more than I could give. One night, as we lay in bed after a particularly vulnerable conversation, I confessed, "I'm scared. Not of us, but of what happens if people find out. What if I'm not brave enough to handle it?" Aaron looked at me, his expression thoughtful. "It's okay to be scared," he said, "but you don't have to face it alone. We'll figure it out together, one step at a time." His words became a source of strength for me. Slowly, I started to open up more about our relationship, first to a close friend, then to another. The responses were mixed. Some were supportive, others confused. But with Aaron by my side, I felt ready to handle whatever came our way. As the weeks turned into months, we built a life together that felt both ordinary and extraordinary. We'd spend lazy Sunday mornings cooking breakfast, arguing over who made the better pancakes. We'd explore the city on weekends, discovering new parks and bookstores. Some nights, we'd stay up late talking about everything and nothing, our laughter echoing through the apartment. Our love wasn't perfect. No love ever is. We had disagreements and moments of frustration, but we always found our way back to each other. Aaron had this ability to diffuse tension with a single smile, and I learned how to meet him halfway, even when it wasn't easy. One evening, as we sat on the rooftop of his building watching the city lights, Aaron took my hand. "Do you ever think about the future?" he asked. "All the time," I admitted. "And do you see me in it?" His voice was steady, but there was a vulnerability in his eyes that mirrored my own. I smiled, squeezing his hand. "I can't imagine it without you." In that moment, I realized just how much he meant to me. Aaron wasn't just someone I cared for. He was someone who had changed me, someone who had shown me what it meant to truly live and love authentically. Looking back now, I can say with certainty that meeting Aaron was the beginning of a journey I never knew I needed. It was a journey of self-discovery, of breaking down walls I'd built around my heart, and of embracing the unexpected beauty of love in all its forms. And for that, I'll always be grateful.